Hey, it is episode 12 of Chasing Squirrels with Pastor Mike. We are continuing our parable draft, but this episode we have a special guest, Drew Berryessa, with us, and he is going to sneak into the parable draft and do a pick. So he gets the 12th overall pick, which I suppose is a rough place to start.
No, 12 is a good number. Number of disciples, foundations of heaven, tribes of Israel. I like that.
Yeah, 12 is a very nice number. Yeah,
very biblical.
The number of like gates in the holy city,
Yes.
all that stuff.
Yes, thematically that works for me.
Yeah.
Flex's Bible knowledge.
Yeah.
12 is a wonderful number too. If you're like a number guy, I like numbers, and base 12 would be better than base 10 because it's divisible by 2, 3, and 4. So you can have halves, thirds, and fourths without fractions, which would be fantastic. But we don't have base 12. We're stuck with base 10 because God gave us that many fingers, I think, and that's how we count. So
I'm not following at all.
you're not following.
No.
It's beautiful.
You chased a squirrel all by
Yeah,
yourself.
that squirrel's in a hole under the snow
All right. If you're like me,
in the dark.
don't leave me alone. Make a comment. If you're like me, I need a comment to validate the idea of thinking about how numbers work. And it's a beautiful thing. And by the way, I just had a birthday and I am now in my prime again. I am a prime number. So I am super happy with that. I wait, for that. And now I'm extremely happy. I'm going to have a great year. But that being said, we are on to pick number 12. And Drew, what do you have for us for your pick in our parable draft?
Well, thematically, since I am the number 12 and there are 12 gates in the holy city, my parable is I am the sheep gate. When Jesus compares himself and gives that example in John 10 of being the sheep gate. And it's, you can find it here. It says, very truly, I tell you, the Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. Mm-hmm. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. Mm-hmm. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Mm-hmm. It goes on, Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, very truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep, and all who have come before me are thieves and robbers. But the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. So I love this. And one of the reasons I think that this is one of my favorite statements, because number one, it's very obscure, I like being an individual and very obscure.
No way.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? So not who you've known me to be so far. But what this speaks to is the exclusivity of Jesus, that he is the only way. Sure. He is the way. He is the way to be reconciled to the Father. He is the only mediator between God and man. It's Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And I love that imagery of being the one gate to go into pasture and then be led in and out through just that one means. So that's my very, jump in the middle here.
Yeah.
Pick number 12.
I think that's a fantastic pick. That's one of the most iconic verses of the Bible is John 10:10, and such a hugely important thing to understand the difference between the thief and Jesus. And, for me, understanding that Jesus came, that we would have life, have it more abundantly, have life to the full, that's such an important thing and something that our Christian culture, maybe in the last several decades, was having problems understanding. Getting a good concept of sacrifice, getting a good concept of, we've got to give everything up for Christ. And yes, we do. But we also get something in return. We also get to have our lives, and we are given abundant life to the full. We get a return on our investment in Christ. And, it's good to make sacrifices. Obviously, it's good to give up our lives. But if we don't realize that there is something we receive in return, which is life to the full, abundant life, if we avoid the thieves and the robbers and we go to Jesus, then we can expect something good from God.
Yeah.
And if we don't realize that, and we send that message to society, come follow Jesus, it's going to be horrible.
Right.
It's going to be really, really, really bad, but finally you'll die. And then you'll know it was worth it. That's going to be a hard one to sell.
Yeah.
To 14-year-olds, to 20-year-olds, and that's where that whole false narrative of what did I used to call it, the heathen dream, like I'm going to live for the devil till the deathbed, then I'm going to give my life to Christ and I'm going to get this life and heaven, I got it figured out. But it's a huge lie, because the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Right.
Don't run to the thief for fun, for good things. It is going to be fraudulent. It's going to have that diminishing return. It's going to be in that place where, wow, that was really great for a while, but now I'm realizing why this was something that's a problem. And you start getting pulled down and you realize the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I didn't realize I was going that direction. I thought I was going the right direction. And here we see Jesus comes to give us life to the full. He's the one that leads us to the Father. He's the one that brings us into those, the right pastures. He is the good shepherd. He's not the hireling who abandons the sheep. We don't have to worry about Jesus leaving us and forsaking us. He's always there, so we can trust in him. It's a hugely important parable.
Yeah, I think there's a beautiful contrast in it too, because there was a sheep gate at the temple where the sacrificial animals would go in and never come out. They went to their death through the gate. Sure. And yet when Jesus is pulling that same title and that same imagery for anyone who would be listening to him, specifically the Pharisees as he's addressing them, they knew what the sheep gate was. They knew that it led to that sacrifice and death. And yet Jesus is tying this concept to life abundant. And the contrast between the old covenant and what Jesus was coming to do, just in that one little parable of saying, this is the way it used to work. And this was not giving life. This was not restoring us, but this is the way to eternal and abundant life. Yeah. And it's such a contrast between what spirituality would have felt like back then before Jesus and what it can feel like now in him. And you make a really good point about kind of that mentality that we sometimes get into where we believe that God can only grow us or lead us or mature us through pain and through painful situations. Yeah. And so we communicate that to the world around us, like, come and die. It's amazing. Or, all your dreams, let God kill them. It's amazing,
And the one that I get a lot, that a lot of people still, I think, are afraid of is, if I fully give my life to Christ, the devil is going to come after me.
Yeah. Guns
blazing, and I am in real trouble.
Yeah.
And that is such a lie. The safest place you can possibly be is the center of God's will. That's where you want to be. You don't want to be foolish and not have your shield of faith up and that sort of thing. But, the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. The thief hurts you. Don't think, oh, I'm safer with the thief.
Sure.
That is just not true.
Right.
But the flip side to that is, like, they are afraid because they know that once they're doing God's will, the devil will try to steal, kill, and destroy them. But that's where that
he'll do that already.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that's where the church should come in and help people.
Yeah.
But that's so I just
there's an aspect.
Said it was a lie that he's not going to attack them.
Well, he'll attack, but you can be ready for that attack.
You can be.
You can submit yourself to God, resist the devil, and make him flee. We don't need to worry that the devil is stronger than Jesus. He's stronger than us, so we'd better submit ourselves to God. Right. But and of course, there's always attacks. But again, the devil will kill anybody. He'll kill those who don't believe. He'll destroy people who are caught in addiction and whose faith is gone. He'll destroy them too. So I think we overplay it when we say, oh yeah, it's going to be bad now that you've given your life to Christ. Well, there's going to be attacks for sure. The devil came to Jesus. If he would attack Jesus,
oh yeah, he'll attack us.
Yeah, because how did he think he could possibly win that one? But he went after him anyway. And so, yeah, we do need to be ready. We do need to be prepared. But I think that if we overstate that, we overemphasize that, then we'll be looking for the devil's attack, and that can be the thing that opens the door.
Sure.
So let's, like, again, I do think it's important to see both sides of that, where you do need to defend yourself. You do need to hold up the shield of faith, because the flaming arrows of the evil one are coming. It isn't whether or not the devil is going to attack. He will.
They are going to come.
So hold up the shield of faith. But then at the same time, if you're just really thinking the devil is stronger than God, so I'm in real trouble if I fully give my life to Christ,
Sure.
then we've made a mistake in that direction.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we also sometimes mistake what is just the natural consequences of being in a fallen world with spiritual attack. Because, if I get sick and begin to die, that isn't necessarily the devil attacking me. That is the fact that we all are going to die because we fell in humanity, and we're no longer, we're not eternal right now. We will be, but we'll be glorified in heaven with the Lord, and that'll be great. But our inevitable death is not spiritual attack. It's consequence of sin, and so, and sometimes when we are walking through life and trying to pursue the Lord and pursue his calling, we run into things that the devil can definitely exploit, but the root of them are just relational consequences or brokenness from our history or other people's history.
That's one of the great questions of walking with God is, when are we over spiritualizing things? When are we under spiritualizing things?
Yeah.
And when are we hitting the nail on the head? I had a friend one time slide through a stop sign on the ice and say, "Lord, what are you trying to teach me?" I'm like, probably to drive slower in the winter. That's probably
the most obvious lesson is probably the one.
I don't think that God pushed you through the intersection in order to teach you a lesson. I think you're just probably driving a little too fast for the conditions. Don't over spiritualize that. Drive a little slower. Watch out for the ice. And that sort of a thing. I don't think we want to over spiritualize those things, but then we can under spiritualize things as well. And we can have, say, thoughts that are put into our mind that are the attacks of the enemy. You're worthless and you're never going to amount to anything and nobody's going to listen to you anyway, so you might as well just quit. And, all these sorts of thoughts, like where'd that come from? Is that the whisper of the enemy trying to discourage us and trying to hurt us? Well, if we don't know to tell those thoughts, you shut up, you get out, you have no right to take my faith away. You have no right to take me off of my calling, and we don't take authority over that.
Right.
Then all of a sudden we can think that we're just thinking thoughts while, we can be being manipulated by the enemy. And so really finding that, I wouldn't even call it balance. I would say proper understanding of what's a spiritual thing and what's a physical thing is one of the great questions of Christianity.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I think there's a relational aspect to that, though, too, that I don't know. Because, yes, put on the shield of faith, deny the enemy, all that stuff. But a new Christian, are they going to know exactly what to respond to that? And so that's why I was trying to say when you were saying, the enemy's going to attack, don't focus on that. I understand that, but at the same time, also for I'm thinking youth, new Christians, they don't know what is this? They just think it's depression or think it's anxiety.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say don't focus on it. I would say don't over focus on it.
Right. I'm not trying to say you're not saying don't focus on it. I'm just saying as a new Christian, not knowing the right things to say, it's nice to have a companion or friends come alongside and say, no, you can rebuke that storm. Yeah. Right.
One of the great stories along those lines is when Seth was playing the guitar on youth group worship team, my middle son, Seth. And he did it for the first time and asked him how'd it go. And he said, well, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. And well, why is that? He said, well, I was up there and I was just kind of playing. And then I all of a sudden had this sense of incredible dread and that I was going to die. And so I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you about that. That sort of stuff will happen. And that's an example of somebody ill-equipped to deal with that spiritual attack on the stage. And it's good to mention that. And then it's so that was an oversight. But at the same time, is that part of your worship team training? You know, and by the way, a great, incredible sense of dread will come up over you, and you're going to think you're going to die. That's totally normal. Nothing to worry about. Just do James 4:7, and everything is going to work out. You know, but you know those things do happen.
Right.
I think even on the stage, it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I think so often we tend to go one way or the other. You know, people think becoming a Christian, you know, your life is going to be miserable. It's just suffer, suffer, suffer. Or you also have the other side too, where people don't realize that things are still going to be tough, that we still do live in the fallen world,
Right.
Yeah.
that the enemy still runs loose on this earth, and that this earth will still, you know, cause pain and suffering in our lives. And we talk about like that pain and suffering, but we don't always necessarily realize to the extent that it will
Right.
come, you know, because we do serve a God that is bigger, you know,
Right.
and so we receive lots of freedom and lots of victory, but also we live in a world and there is some bad stuff. And it's interesting because, man, how do you communicate both? You know, how do you not err on the side of, man, life is going to be miserable, but also not on the side that, yep, everything's good, you know, victory all the time. And
Right.
like, I mean,
Yeah, because it's a both and, not an either or.
right.
It isn't everything works out great,
Right.
or everything is a horrible struggle. It's not an or, it's an and.
Yep.
You know, yes, God won't leave you or forsake you. Yes, we can trust the Lord to see us through this. You know, we can get there.
Right.
And, you know, the car is going to break down.
Yeah.
And, you know, these struggles are going to happen. And, you know, how are we going to navigate all of that? So there are both. And yeah, how do you communicate that?
I was thinking about that in regards to teaching like kids church this weekend, looking at, you know, the curriculum that we got, and we're talking about patience and kind of persevering through tough times and storms. And so it's called The Very Bad, Horrible, No Good Day is our lesson.
Amazing.
Come on.
But
Welcome to Christianity.
you know, and so how to communicate that balance to kids is obviously also a unique thing. You got to do age appropriate in regards to some of that stuff. But like some of the examples that they were giving is, you know, like some days you're going to have a bad hair day, you know, and I was like, yeah, because that's the tough stuff we're going
Right,
to deal with in
right.
life. No, your grandma might die of cancer, you know,
Right.
like those are the other
Right.
tough things that you have to face.
Right. And you
know.
prayed.
Right. What happens when you pray for your grandma to be healed and she doesn't get healed?
Yeah.
You know, like those are the like actual tough things. And how do you still have faith and still trust God after that happens?
Right.
You know, not, oh, you know, I had a bad hair day, you know,
Right.
like that sucks, you know?
Exactly. I think it is important when you're looking at age appropriate, either with kids or with youth, to also, you know, like they deal with hard things.
Yeah, they do.
You know,
100%.
You want to be age appropriate, but that doesn't mean shallow. You know,
Right.
So,
Right. And age appropriate is open to interpretation because, you know, the ages that children and the statistics for children experiencing sexual abuse as an experience in their life, they're very high in our culture. And, you know, this is generally very young when these things happen. And so age appropriate is understanding that our kids are facing things that are incredibly difficult to understand and contextualize for their life, incredibly challenging to them then understanding the character and the nature of God because they're filtering who God is through their experiences. And
Yep.
and we have to do a good job of creating that balanced perspective. And it's one of the reasons I love Romans 8:28, not as a platitude, as a lot of people say, you know, when you're going through a hard time, like, God works all things together for the good of those who love him. And it's like, thank you for that. But when you really dig into it and you understand, God doesn't make all these things happen and he doesn't call all these things good. God, when we give these things to him, has the ability and the redemptive power to turn them for our good and for his glory.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so that's where, you know, teaching my kids from a very early age, just to look at life and what we face through a redemptive lens, that because we belong to Jesus, he has the authority to redeem anything that happens to us, good or bad. And so we can face every circumstance with this hope in his character, rather than hope that the circumstances will always be easy. They won't.
yeah. And that's, if you take Romans 8:28 through the lens of Romans 5 and James 1, where, you know, Romans 5, you've got the the progression of all the bad things that happen that turn into a good thing.
Right.
And the same thing with James 1, but Romans 5, we'll just read 3 through 5. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given us. So we see a progression from suffering to hope. And well, it started with suffering.
Yeah.
And does suffering always result in hope? It doesn't. Sometimes it results in brokenness that we have trouble ever overcoming in life, and if we can walk by faith and believe in the redemptive capacity of God and realize, okay, this horrible thing, this evil thing is something that God can use in my life to mature me farther than I otherwise would have been matured, and be able to help other people in ways I wouldn't otherwise have been able to help them, then I can understand the redemptive capacity of God and how he can use this for his good. But that doesn't mean that the person wasn't evil when they did the thing, or, that it wasn't suffering. And, James is the same concept. Consider it pure joy, James 1:2. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Mature and complete, not lacking anything. But where does it start? It starts with the trials of many kinds.
Right.
And so when we walk through the hardships, when we walk through the difficulties, but we walk by faith and we believe in God's redemptive capacity rather than this is all going to fall apart and there's no way I can make it. And, but we believe by faith God can bring something good out of this.
Yeah.
Then even in the midst of the struggle and the storm, we can think, there's going to be a future that's worth it, that God's going to bring something good out of this.
Yeah.
Right. It's like me with my Jeep.
Come on.
That was a wonderful experience. I bought I bought a newer Jeep thinking that it was going to spend more money on a car so it'll be better, right? And the first 2 months of it was in the shop. I drove it maybe 3 times. And yeah, it was not great. Costed a lot of money. But I was at first my perspective was, this sucks. Why did I buy this? But then after I'm like, okay, God, you're working something out in me or something, or you're going to take the situation and something cool is going to happen of it. Don't know what that is yet.
Yeah.
But that perspective, I think, is where we're supposed to maintain, when we face trials and things. Not that the devil attacked my car and caused that to
right, because cars
go bad.
do have problems.
Cars do have problems, but
listen, the devil loves to make our cars break down at the most inconvenient times ever. We all know this.
Right.
Yeah, my in-laws always used to pray, and Lord, if we break down, let it be in a convenient place.
Yes.
Exactly. It never is.
No, it's not.
But that mindset of whatever trials or whatever storm I'm facing, there's going to be something on the other side. And not that I'm going to get a new car or that my car is going to be great, but maybe he was working on my pride, my anger, my whatever it may be. But all of those things, there's going to be something that's good that came out of this.
Yeah. One of the good things that came from the COVID shutdown for me was I used to be afraid of snowstorms. Oh no, we're going to have a snowstorm. We're going to have to cancel services for the weekend. We're going to lose our momentum. People are going to get out of the habit of coming to church, and then we're going to have to fire somebody from staff because, and all this stuff rolls in your head.
Right.
I'm afraid of snowstorms. And then we're shut down, no live services for 3 months, and the church is stronger now than it was before.
Come on.
It's
Amen.
you know what? I guess it's going to be okay.
Right.
I need to just walk by faith and not be shaken and trust that the Lord has a plan, even when this looks kind of scary.
Yeah.
Well, it's seek first the kingdom, right? The verse that you quote a lot.
Yeah.
And
Matthew 6:33.
everything else will be added, right?
Yeah.
So as long as we keep that mindset is this kingdom related?
Right.
I firmly believe that something's going to work out.
Amen.
Doesn't mean you're going to get $1 million check in the mail randomly, like some people may say.
Right.
But
you might.
you might. But
You might.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, why not?
That would be
you
awesome.
have not because you ask not,
Right.
Pastor Tom. So, but
please God, give me $1 million check in the mail. I would love that.
that would be.
You got to have something that you're going to. What I heard was if you want $1 million check, make sure you have already planned the ministry need you would fill with $1 million. If you need a certain thing to happen to take things to the next level, like a building addition or whatever it might be, and you're able to articulate that, then you can believe God that that's possible. But if you're just like, yeah, you know, it'd be awesome to have a bunch of money in the bank that we wouldn't use for anything, you know, that's not going to be a compelling vision that people are going to get behind or that God is going to fund.
No, God doesn't seem to be all that concerned with our comfort or convenience most of the time. So I don't know that, you know.
This is accurate.
I think as we were talking about Elvis, I think the other thing that just struck me is that in those moments where those difficulties come, more than just and sometimes it's more than just what he can do redemptively in our lives. Sometimes it's the revelation of his character in the trial. Yeah. Because I think in the Old Testament, you see this so often where people ascribe new names to God based on their experience of a trial where he showed up and his character was revealed and his heart was revealed towards them. And so I know there have been times where my family has gone through situations where, you know, I can't for the life of me figure out practically how that was ever good. But what we learned about God's character in it and the ways that I now know him to operate in my life and for my family and on my behalf are lessons and these places of remembrance that have been so good for our family moving forward. And we've needed those revelations with some of the things that we've chosen to walk into and face and minister to. So yeah, I think that that's also very big on this whole conversation is the experiences we go through often can give us a revelation of God's character for us in it.
Absolutely. And that's so much more powerful of a thing than having your vehicle work or whatever it might be to understand or, you know, to never have a shutdown of church. Or to recognize that God is faithful. He'll see us through. This trial was more than we thought we would be able to handle, but it turned out that we came through on the other side. And so I guess I can trust God with some big things. He's there. He's able. And I don't have to have anxiety over, you know, again, like a snowstorm or something. We're not going to be destroyed by something like that. It's going to be fine. The kingdom of God will prevail.
And it has so far, and we get snowstorms every year.
That's exactly right. We try not to ever cancel because of snow, but we have. I mean, when they shut down McDonald's over there, we canceled church. We weren't going to, but I tried to come in. I couldn't even get into the parking lot. It was so much snow. I got down by the dumpster and I had to back out because it's like, I can't even drive in here. It was ridiculous.
I am so impressed with all of you in Minnesota. We get a half inch of snow and school shuts down for a week. It's like all over. You know, inclement weather. It's like it melted already. What's
Texas,
going on?
They forecast snow and the world shuts down.
Absolutely right.
All of the toilet paper gets bought out. All of the chicken, all of the steak, all of that stuff is bought out for one day. I'm like, y'all need all that for one day?
Yep.
It's pretty funny. Actually, probably lasted like a week.
Yeah.
Like a week, but they don't plow. They don't do anything. They're just like, good luck.
Well, they'd have to buy all the trucks and everything just for when that hardly ever happens. That'd be an expense that's not worth it.
But it's happened 2 years in a row now in Texas. Wow. Been pretty bad. So this year and last year. So
crazy stuff. Well, Drew, fantastic pick. The Good Shepherd, Jesus as the gate for the sheep. That is episode number 12 of Chasing Squirrels with Pastor Mike. Next time, I get my third round pick, so make sure you come back for Chasing Squirrels episode 13. There we go. Welcome back.
Was that like a dinosaur? Like
that was funny.
I don't know what that was. It was maybe a half burp scenario or something.
It was not a burp. It was... Yeah, see, he did too. Exactly. We have that on camera now. That's what I'm grateful for.
There you go.